All right. Big thank you to Heather Turngren for all of her work.
We're going to be talking about IET quality indicators as well as an introduction and overall in discussion about IET. And we are fortunate to have Julie Dinkow here from the Minnesota Department of Education. She is the ABE transition specialist, and I call IET guru over there at MDE. We will listen to me. I am Turngren, and I'm with Minneapolis Adult Education. I'm a teacher there, and then I also work with Adult Career Pathways, also known as ACP and IET, in other areas of my work. And I am happy to be here with you all, and I am going to turn it over to Julie Dinkow, and she can share with us a lot of background information about IET.
Thank you, Heather. I think guru's a little much, but I'll take it. As Heather mentioned, IET, or the slide said, it stands for Integrated Education and Training, and it's kind of heavy on the integrated because ABE is always teaching education skills. And now we're slowly bringing in more training, but the huge component here is that it's integrated. So I'm just going over a couple of slides that really define or look at the federal statute around integrated education and training. First of all, oftentimes people wonder, is this a program? Is IET a program, or is it, do you just call it IET? And how it's defined is a little different. They call it a service approach. IET is a service approach, and it provides adult education and literacy activities concurrently and contextually with workforce preparation activities and workforce training for a specific occupation or occupational cluster for the purpose of educational and career advancement. I just want to break this down a little bit. Concurrently and contextually are the two components that most people do not, I shouldn't say they don't understand, but have a hard time grasping when you look at this service approach because it's different. In adult education, we are very good at developing like these on-ramps and bridge courses that prepare adult learners to go into a training program. We used to do this with certified nursing assistant, with welding courses, like math or blueprint reading for welding and different things like that. The difference here is that there is no bridge or ramp. It is, you're getting those just-in-time academic services integrated into the training. So that's a bit of a difference than like having this bridge course and then the training. And then workforce preparation activities, a lot of people, their minds go to, oh, that's resume writing, that's job skills. It's partially that, but it's really defined a lot further in statute to include what we here in Minnesota have really referred to as our ACEs, academic, career, employability skills, that include critical thinking, self-management. It also includes like the North Star digital literacy work as well. So workforce preparation activities is a broad category that does have it's a lot more than just say resume writing. Could we go back to the prior slide just a minute? Yeah. And then the workforce training for a specific occupation or occupational cluster is very important because this is when people say, well, can I design an IET around this specific area? Or can I design an IET around going into or using this particular credential. It specifically has to refer to an occupational cluster or a specific occupation. So if they are broad trainings, you have to look at, for instance, CPR. In my mind, you could consider that a training. Is it training for a specific occupation? Not necessarily. What are some other ones? If they're work readiness credentials, those generally don't count as IET because they are too vague and too general. IET needs to prepare people for a specific occupation. And I'm sorry, now we can go on to the next slide. And I covered a little bit of what's on the next slide in the definition. Um, so you can see it here, how we broke those three major categories down. So adult education and literacy is your academic content, which adult basic education knows how to do. This is what we're known for. This is what we do. Workforce preparation, we've been doing that at least since 2011, and I would argue we've been doing that before that time. But as far as having it as a standard, we've definitely been doing that work since 2011. And then workforce training are the competencies, skills, and credentials specific to a career field. And there's different areas in different databases where you can find competencies for specific occupational areas. And then it's the blending of that with the adult education and literacy and the workforce preparation that makes up an IET. Next slide. And then what are the goals of an IET? So beyond, most people think it's training to train for a position. It's that, but we're hoping to improve basic skills, complete a training program. A lot of times an IET can be wrapped into Pathways to Prosperity grant. Obtain the industry recognized training or credential, earn a GED or a high set, or even an adult diploma if needed. They can work together to deliver that through an IET. And then, of course, to gain employment or continue on with further education and training. And as Brad mentioned at the opening, this is one area where we have been doing a very good job around the employment goals for the state. Next slide. I believe I'm turning it back over to you, Heather, to do the introduction to the quality indicators.
Thank you, Julie. And I think that what information that you shared just piggybacks so well with the idea of the quality indicators. As you were pointing out those IET goals, I like to think of the quality indicators as a way to achieve those goals, or if you're an instructor like me, it's a way that you are showing excellence or exemplary in your IET. So we're going to be going through this, and I want this to be an engaging session. So if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. You could also raise hand, unmute, and speak, but this is an introduction for many people to the quality indicators. I might be referring them to QI. So the IET quality indicators actually came out through a federally sponsored initiative on spreading more IET across the entire nation. And so an initiative was created to help programs and states look for indications of quality integrated education and training. The quality indicators are organized into 5 different categories, and you can read them along with me. So the first category, there are a number of indicators just about the overall IET program design. So I think back to that plan statement that Karen had in the back of her video, but it's really important about planning that program design. The second category is collaboration and industry engagement. And I think this could be highlighted with some of the work Susan mentioned about getting those partners in there, collaborating with them. I loved her idea of a spotlight. So that's getting that engagement into those industries and career sectors that our students are moving into with their industry recognized credential. The third area is curriculum and instruction. I think of myself as a teacher first, but I want to point out we don't start with the curriculum. We have to have that program design before we get that curriculum and instruction component inside the IET. Also, there are quality indicators about the student experience as well as the progress. So it's always important for us to be thinking about what are the students experiencing and is it happening within a contextualized or authentic real world experience when they move into that career. And finally, I think about program management. Many of you put on that jack-o'-lantern or pumpkin cap. You are coordinating and managing these IETs, and it comes to thinking about staffing and organizational support. And I think again back to what Karen mentioned about having these processes and procedures in place, it will really help to streamline and make that IET function well. So those are the 5 categories. What I'd like to let you know that they all fit within what we call the IET design, which has 4 different areas. And you can follow me along. All of this supports students and programs and partnerships in IET. But the first phase of IET is to do some research and assess. And we'll be looking at some of those quality indicators so that you are thinking about what IET is needed, what career clusters have a lot of openings in your area, and then assessing the layout of that. The next phase would be design and plan, and that is where you're carefully designing and planning your IET, thinking about who is going to be teaching, who is going to be doing those navigation services, where you're going to be conducting your class. I think back to what Susan was saying about how they needed to find a partner that was statewide because they had a statewide course. And that comes in with that thoughtful design and plan. Next, you develop and implement your IET. And this is where those SSLOs come in. It is designing the single set of learning objectives that will help inform the students, the partner, as well as the instructor, the skills that are essential to learn to earn that credential. Finally, I think this is so important. We need to focus on phase 4, which is evaluating and making improvements. No IET is just one and done. We can always make evaluations, make improvements, especially as we see the environment around us is constantly changing. We hear changes in work situations and even things like the unemployment figures. All of that can help you really evaluate your IET and make improvements for the next cohort. The images here all come from the IET Design Toolkit, which is located on links. That's the federal website, but also Atlas has some shared links to this. So integrated education and training, or IET, quality indicators are important because they give programs, especially the local programs, a clear framework for planning, delivering, and improving your IET services. So I think it provides a lot of ideas and suggestions and strategies that you can be using. Their value of the quality indicators lie in helping states, programs, and instructors ensure that students receive high quality learning experiences that connect education with the workforce skills. I think back to what Julie was saying, it's got to happen concurrently so that students are not just learning skills and then learning the workforce skills in separate areas, but it's all together. Here are a few reasons why IET quality indicators are so important. All right, think about this, consistency and standards. So as an instructor, I know I need to be consistent in my instruction and I'm held to content standards. So think about the quality indicators could be standards for your program to make sure that you have a quality IET. They promote common expectations across programs, um, so that IET services are aligned with best practices and the workforce needs. I also think about program improvement. No program is the best always, okay? We can make uh, improvement along the way, and so programs can use the quality indicators to evaluate their strengths, but also think about the weaknesses or challenges, and then make adjustments so that we can better serve our learners. That is at the heart of IET. Student-centered focus, the next one down there at the bottom, indicators ensure that instruction integrates academic, workforce preparation, and training skills in a way that supports our students' successes. All right, so again, it's got to be happening at the same time concurrently. It's got to be contextualized so our students are able to jump into that job and be successful. The A word sometimes, accountability. So when you use these quality indicators, it could help states, but also people who are funding our programs. Think about outside funding sources to measure whether or not our IET are meeting the goals and if they are delivering value. So if you think about those quality indicators, it's also a way that you can be promoting what you are doing with your IET to new partners. The alignment with career pathways is so important. So the quality indicators encourage your programs to focus on training that leads to employment, further education, and especially those credentials that are industry recognized and people can use to start a job right away. Equity and access, we do know that IET and using those quality indicators can support programming to be more thoughtful and have more inclusive opportunities for our adult learners to gain both education and job skills. That's what most of our learners want. They want to do it all at once so they can go on with what I say their big, beautiful lives, right? I want them in and out of my classroom as soon as possible, just like you. And a way to do that is with IET. So the IET quality indicators are important to ABE programming because they guide your programs in creating effective, student-centered, and workforce-aligned education that leads to real opportunities for learners. I think back to what Brad was saying with all of those numbers. Wow, that is really impressive. And what I'd like to know, Brad, is perhaps we can hear from some of those programs on what those learners are doing once they move on into the career field. So we're going to go through the quality indicators. I think someone will be sharing in the chat a link if you want to see what the quality indicators look like. There are 24 indicators. We're going to try something a little new for us. And I'm hoping that you can learn with us if there are any hiccups with technology. But we're going to do some annotation on our Zoom screens. So there are a number of statements, which are those quality indicators. There are 24 in total, and we're going to read through them. And I'd like you to annotate the statements that reflect what you and your program are currently doing. All right, and it could be for IET or adult career pathways, or maybe you're planning for the future. So just think about what you're doing now. You can also follow along in the PDF and take notes. What I'm going to do is turn on the annotate in a moment, and then you're going to click the 3 dots next to my name. It should be in the top middle part of your screen. I think it is turned on for everyone from my end. And We want to see if that is working. Okay, yeah, it's working on my end. Yep, I see a lot of hearts from Carly. Thank you. So you're going to click on those three dots right by my name, and then you're going to click on the word annotate, and it's going to trigger that annotation menu off on the left side, and click on the arrow, and that's going to be stamping. And you can choose a stamp. It could look like an X, a heart, a star, or even a question mark. We're going to ask you not to do, or maybe a check mark or something, so that you can annotate on the screen. I'm going to pause here for a moment to give everyone an opportunity to get that working. I am going to clear the screen, and let's try that again on the next slide. All right. As you can see, I'm learning along the way, friends. I have to do a couple of things here that I am learning. So I'm going to clear this one, and then I'll move to the next slide. How's that? So what I'd like to see if everyone is able to make some stamping or annotation on this slide. Again, you're going to click on the annotate on the three dots next to my name, and then you click on the arrow for the stamp, and then you can do a star, or if you'd like, you can do an X, or maybe even a check mark. If you're having issues with this, I don't want this to derail any of our discussions. So we always have a plan B, right, for technology, especially for you online teachers. I'm thinking about Susan and her online cohort. So then you can just use the chat, all right? Someone wrote, it works. That is my quality indicator, okay? Let me clear the drawings, friends, and I'm gonna go to the next slide, and we'll see if that works for us. Okay. I see something is still happening here. So let me go back a slide. We might have to turn off annotation for a moment. I know it gets a little exciting, but when people are annotating, then we can't see everything. So I'm hoping this is helpful now. There, all right. So what I'm going to do is not my instructional best practices, but I'm just going to be reading because of the quantity of folks we have here today. So I'm going to go line by line of the quality indicators. The first ones that you see, 1, 2, 3, 4, right now pertain to the IET program design category. So it refers to the intentional design and development of a program that meets the needs of our local labor markets, so in your area. It also provides a pathway to quality jobs, and it aligns with our federal and state policies. So that's that IET program design that we need to begin with first. So number 1 says meet local labor market needs as evidenced by labor market information, what we call LMI, research, and employer validation, and it creates a pathway to quality jobs. So think about either your IET or your adult career pathway, or maybe what you're planning in the future. And could you put a check mark next to number 1 if that is what you're currently doing? Are you looking at labor market information? Okay, are you connecting with some of the people at DEED, which is that Department of Employment and Economic Development, to help you know what jobs are open in your area? And while you're stamping this, we're taking note also so that we know not which programs, but how many programs might be doing this already. If you're not doing it, we might ask some of those who stamped in just a moment to maybe speak up on some of the best practices you are for meeting those local labor market needs. I see a number of checks and stars. That's fantastic. That's that quality, um, that indicator that you are doing this work. Let's move to number 2, friends. Number 2 says that your IET is part of a career pathway that provides articulated opportunities for students to advance to additional workforce training, post-secondary education, and career advancement. So, for example, if you have a CNA IET, do you have ways that you're getting students into that, like that bridge or on-ramp programming that Julie mentioned? Are you helping them move along to maybe other post-secondary education opportunities? If you're doing that with your IET or ACP, could you put a check mark next to number 2? And again, it's that whole pathway so that it's not just here's one class, but there are an on-ramp, a bridge, IET, and you're working with other programs or other institutions. We also have number 3, friends. Number 3, read along with me. It says your IET increases access to and success in-demand workforce training and career advancement opportunities. This might be similar to using that LMI data, but that you are actually using that data to make that in-demand workforce training, that people need it right now. I think back to 2020, 2021, where we needed CNAs, and there was a lot of CNA push out for IET because that's what we needed during a pandemic. I see there are a number of check marks there. Let's think about number 4, all right? So your IET has a developed set of learner, program, and partner goals and objectives to establish a common vision and to ensure that program results align with intended student and partner outcomes. So this is not the SSLOs, but that you have a goal for the learner to get a GED or adult diploma and then get that credential, but also a goal for your program. We're going to have X number of learners get that credential, but then also the objectives for your partner. It could be an employer or a trainer, that they will have X number of new employees going in that pipeline, so to speak. So please put a check mark on number 4 if you are doing that currently. Okay. I even see now a heart next to number 3. I see a few check marks with number 4. I do know that sometimes it's difficult to get that common goal or vision for both students, programs, and partners. And I think back to what Karen was sharing, some of that planning. Maybe that means you need to have more meetings with people together to make sure you're all on the same page throughout that IET. I'll pause here because I need to clear the screen, but as I'm doing this work, I'd like to see if there are any questions in the chat or anything that we need to address. Carly or Astrid can jump in if
No,
so. Okay,
yeah,
great.
no
Thank you.
questions yet that I'm seeing.
Okay, I like to see all the annotations.
Yeah,
Thanks, Astrid.
yeah.
We're still
And
focused
Karen
on
points
that.
out if you have a grant, the grant outlines the goals of the partnership.
Okay, great.
So, for example,
And
the Pathways to Prosperity grant supports their IET.
oh, that's great. And that is where it's that collaboration. You've got those high quality indicators. Um, we're still focused on that idea of IET program design because it is so important as part of that first phase. So let's take a look at number 5. So this one, you'll annotate if you are thinking about this and doing it, that your IET aligns with state IET guidance and with career pathway activities as required under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, also known as WIOA. And I think it was great that Brad shared on the Minnesota ABE website where you can find the IET guidance, getting it approved for your IET. I just see one check mark, but I have a feeling there are other people who are aligning your IET with that state guidance. Yeah, I'm sure you all are doing it because you had your IETs approved by the state. Or some of you might be having it approved in the future if you are just creating that IET now. Number 6 is so important, friends. Again, think about the designing of your IET. You have an articulated marketing and outreach plan to reach potential students in the community. So articulate it. Do you have it written down? Do you have a process? What are you doing? I think sharing a flyer just in your program might not be the best way because you have to go out into the community where all of those potential learners are that could come in and take advantage of your IET. I see quite a lot of check marks. I'm hoping in a moment you can share some of that marketing and outreach that you're doing. Number 7 says provides intake and orientation services to help students onboard successfully and has support in place to help students persist and succeed. So do you have that? Do you have an intake and orientation process? Maybe not for your program, but specifically for that IET. I think back a number of years ago, maybe 8 years ago in the program that I work in, we had orientation for our childhood development associate certificate. And they were in the evening when people could come and the teacher could meet. And it was an intake and orientation to make sure students were properly placed into that IET. I think back to what Karen was saying, having those cut scores, okay? That is really important so that you know which students are going to be successful. You've made those cut scores. And finally, within IET program design, we have you are considering multiple funding sources to resource the planning, development, delivery, and follow-up of the IET. So some of you may have been the grantees for the IELCE Civics grants, and congrats to you. Others have P2P grants, but think about the different funding sources that can help you with the planning, development, and delivery of your IET. All right, friends. So I see a number of check marks. Number 8 can be difficult. I know, getting all of those multiple funding sources. So I see one lone check mark. We might ask that person if you can share some of your tried and true methods. What I'm going to do is clear the screen. And I just want to hear from you all, okay? What did you notice, or maybe what do you wonder about the IET program design quality indicators that are specific just for program design? You can share in the chat. I'd like to see if there are any questions, comments, suggestions. Some of you are, I want you to feel free if needed to unmute and share. I'll be looking to Carly or Astrid to see if anyone has a notice or a wonder.
Nothing coming in the chat yet, Heather.
Okay.
I don't know
Something
if you
that
want to. Yeah.
I was going to say something that I wonder is that one lone check mark for the multiple funding streams. I'm not sure who did that, but if maybe they want to share in the chat some of those funding streams so that other folks can get an idea about how you make sure that IET is funded.
Hi, Heather. This is Julie.
Yeah.
That's also a question I was wondering about. I know with the federal adult education funding, in order to spend funding on training, it must be an IET. So that's just one thing to remember around our federal funding. I do not think our state funding holds that requirement, but it's good to know if you're spending federal funding on training, it must be built into an IET. I'm also thinking of different ways people could support this work. With the state funding, IET can be done. You do not have to submit if you're going to put it in the database, but IET is a model that can be done locally. You do not, well, we have similar programs. You don't have to what's the word submit it into to get approval if you're running your own. You can't count it as an IET, but we have several programs across the state that I would argue are running IETs, but they're not claiming them as IETs. That's just something to think about as well. And I know that when the federal regulations came out, IET was both something programs could do on their own or something programs could do embedded in an IELCE grant.
Thanks for that information and clarification, Julie. And I might suggest if other people have questions that they reach out to you. Is that all right? Is that a
Absolutely.
possibility? Okay, great.
Absolutely. Yep. Mhm.
Thanks. And we'll move along, friends.
We do have one other
Oh.
wondering in the chat,
Yes.
Heather. Kelly's wondering how she can reach out to more employers and find out more about the labor market.
Oh, that is a good wondering. I am wondering if anyone wants to share their suggestions, because that was that IET quality indicator number 1, that you're using the labor market information. It's not so much working on the collaboration. We'll go to that next in the IET quality indicators. But could folks share in the chat how they're getting that LMI data and then moving that the next step to reaching out to partners?
Got great suggestions coming in the chat. Contacting your regional analyst, so Tim O'Brien in the metro area. Karen's suggesting through your workforce board. Career force. So some good suggestions coming in the chat.
Oh, wonderful. I like that we can all share, because that's what we do best in adult ed, is that we share and collaborate. And speaking of collaboration, let's look at that category of collaboration and industry engagement. I think it works really well with that question people were just asking. So this category refers to ongoing communication and collaboration with partners, employers, and students to ensure the program meets the community's evolving needs, as well as establish processes and tools for communication and fulfilling the program's vision and purpose. I think back to Karen, that thoughtful planning. And look at number 9, you're holding regular and ongoing meetings to collaborate with your partners, employers, and students to ensure the IET meets community needs during planning, implementation, and evaluation of the program, and adjust appropriately to changing interests and priorities of the partners. I know this can be very hard, but it's so important to make sure you're having those meetings where the partners, the instructor, the employers, the students are at least together at one point to understand the purpose of that IET and to make sure it's being adjusted appropriately to changes that might come up. And by students, the students don't have to attend all of the meetings. That's not quite what I was trying to say, but that you are getting feedback from the students so that you can make adjustments appropriately. I was working with an IET program in another state, and they realized their training partner, which was a nursing home in another state, the students said, we would never want to work there. We don't believe they have high quality care for the residents. So that was a big eye opener for that program. And they had to think about having a different partner because of that feedback and input from the students. So just making sure that you're always thinking about that. I see a number of check marks. How about number 10, friends? Your IET has an established process and tools for communicating the vision and the purpose of the IET uh, program with various post-secondary education and training partners, employers, and students. It's so helpful also for that marketing and outreach that you have that vision and that it's shared among everyone who's involved in that IET. Could you put a check mark if you have that, those processes and tools in place to communicate that vision? You can annotate on, that would be number 10. I'm just gonna say, I think Karen in Mankato was sharing some of that information in her little video there. Number 11, let's annotate it. If your IET has an established process and tools for communicating with and working with industry and education sector partners with clarity around roles and needs and includes industry input into the curriculum, student engagement, and hiring. I think about what Susan mentioned in her video about having those spotlights. That's getting that industry input and the student engagement, potentially hiring. I think that would be a high quality indicator for that program that Susan in Mounds View is working on. So put a check mark, annotate if that is something you have. I think it's so important to clarify those roles and then the needs of students. I notice there are no check marks there. So perhaps that is a quality indicator that we can look to as maybe focusing for future IET work. I'm going to clear our screen here and I'll move forward to see if you have any notices or wonderings about collaboration and industry engagement along focusing on the IET quality indicators. You can share in the chat, you can unmute. I'm going to look to Carly or Astrid if you can help with that chat. I'm thinking if anyone has that vision or that marketing outreach, or how are you connecting with those partners?
Karen, would you want to unmute and share a little bit of what you've been, the examples you've been sharing in the chat?
Okay, I'm sitting here with Mary Kate, who organizes my life, and I'm asking her, do we have that, Mary Kate? So we have some tools that, like our internal processes, we have documented. We've made 1 million flow charts for internal intake and also a big flow chart for our partnership to show like the roles and who does what. But I'm trying to think, other than our flyers that advertise the program, the only way that we talk to employers is through the workforce board, through and distributing those flyers and our advertising. And we have goals as far as like when we're going to run our bridge classes that lead to our integrated instruction. We have goals that will have the flyer for the summer classes. We'll have that out by January 1st so that we're advertising that. And then we have a goal to have the next one out by June 1st for the fall classes. But I don't know that we actually have a document with like the vision. Do we, Mary Kate? No, she's sitting here with me. So that's something other than our grant, I don't know that we have that. What would that look like, Julie?
An overall vision, I think.
Yeah.
This is just from my perspective. I think Heather might have more of an idea, but what I think they're looking for is something where you have brought all the partners together and that they all have the same vision on what they are trying to accomplish. They're coming to consensus in that it's just not the employer thinking, oh, I'm going to get trained employees out of here, that they're really buying into that we're improving the skills of these learners and hopefully creating a pathway where they can get promoted or go on to further teaching or go on to, sorry, not teaching, but further education. So that and I think it's really the intent behind it is to make sure that you're having that conversation with everyone so that everyone has an understanding of what the vision would be. At least that's how I would interpret that. Yeah.
So I think that would happen through our Adult Career Pathways Committee. So we have our local workforce board and we have a subcommittee of that local workforce board. And that it's called the Adult Career Pathways Committee. And we meet quarterly and we have all of our partners there quarterly and we plan out our IETs and that's how we get our grants, our Pathways to Prosperity grants, but also any other grants that we are getting that would advance our IET work are discussed in that Adult Career Pathways Committee meeting. So I guess maybe just the description of that committee and our goals and
That
then our agendas of what we're covering and because anytime somebody new comes to that meeting, we explain what we're doing and then we all work together on those.
I I think that's a fantastic process. That is the process you've established. You maybe just haven't written it down.
Right. And then
And then,
we have
yeah,
employers there too, you know.
uh-huh. And not all boards have career pathway subcommittees. So I
Right.
think that's really unique, and that would be something that we could promote across the state as something that would really help build this for creating the vision and then also just getting the communication out there to all partners that are involved in it.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic.
I just
I
wanted
agree,
to
Julie.
share my 2 cents on that because I guess the way that I was interpreting it was more like, we're used to thinking about our students as the audience. We've got all kinds of flyers for all different types of classes, and like that's so obvious, right? But thinking of the employers or industry partners as an audience, I mean, I think most of us on this call are probably like, oh, yeah, they are, but we're maybe not used to advertising in that way, explaining our mission, who do we serve, how we can help them, ways we can partner. And I was trying to like type this in the chat, but it got to be too long of an answer. But it's like I'm very excited by the possibility of like helping to create some of those documents that could maybe there's a standard flyer about what is ABE and how could it help you in your business. And then at the bottom, you customize it with your own contact information. And, we don't need to like reinvent the wheel, but we can maybe start our brand, like have this brand of ABE for employers and these types of partnerships because we have these meetings and that would just be a nice takeaway for people to remember us, maybe.
I like that you're giving yourself work, Carly. I also think it's moving beyond having a career fair or a job fair because that's bringing the employers to our learners. But what we're doing is bringing those employers in and we're saying, we can give you educated learners with a credential. All right. But you need to be working with us, not just to come in and take our learners as employees, but work with us to inform what are the skills that you need. your employees to be able to do. Thanks for the good discussion. I'm going to be moving us along. We still have a few more quality indicators. Bear with me, friends. We now are going to look at the curriculum and instruction quality indicators, which are near and dear to my heart as a teacher, and I'm sure many others. So they refer to high quality curriculum with occupationally contextualized content that includes the 3 required elements of IET design that Julie mentioned. It's got to have a single set of learning objectives, which Carly is going to discuss in a moment, and opportunities for real world application and use of instructional technology that is responsive to student and industry needs. So look at number 12, friends. Let's annotate. If you have a curriculum that includes the 3 required components, concurrent of IET, you have the adult education literacy, workforce preparation, workforce training, and you're using high quality content, your activities and materials are occupationally contextualized. So stamp away. I think many of you, if you're not stamping, are doing this already, especially if you have those approved SSLOs. The curriculum and instruction indicators also provide opportunities for students to connect and apply learning to real world and work related situations. I think back to what Susan was saying. She's teaching online for IT credentials and connecting students with real world applications. So that is quality programming. And then 14, about those SSLOs, that your IET has a single set of learning objectives, or SSLOs, that consists of individual learning objectives that integrate the adult ed content state level standards, occupational skills, and workforce preparation activities to guide integrated instruction. So stamp number 14 if you have those SSLOs. I suspect if your SSLOs have been approved by the state, you're doing that. You have those objectives. They are aligned with the 3 components and it's concurrently delivered. I see a lot of check marks and I love the hearts for curriculum and instruction. Let me just take a moment to clear the screen. And we can move on to see some more about curriculum and instruction. Number 15 is uses instructional technology and digital platforms to meet students' needs, ensure work readiness, and enhance delivery of IET components. Susan, I think you've got to be making a lot of check marks there because you are doing all of that within your IET. Technology and digital platforms are so important for all jobs and especially those credentials. Most of those credentials are determined by an online exam, so students have to feel comfortable in that digital environment. 16, please stamp away, friends, if your IET identifies, implements, and updates instructional materials from evidence-based research or promising practices that are responsive to student and current industry needs. So if you've been doing the same IET for 10 years and you've never adjusted the curriculum, you might have to think, we have to go in to see if there are more updates within the industry needs. I see a lot of check marks there. That is fantastic. How about 17? Your IET has integrated curriculum that reflects the essential knowledge, skills, and credentials that are required for employment in a sector as identified by industry and employer experts. So you have that credential that's needed for that job, and you reached out to the employers to make sure that that's the right credential. So many check marks, friends. That's fantastic. I hate to remove all of your great work, but I'm going to do it. I'm just going to clear the screen, move on. Okay, let me clear it one more time. Oops, there we go. So I'm going to see if you have any notices or wonderings about the IET curriculum and instruction quality indicators. We had so many check marks there. I'm not sure if You are wondering, but I noticed a lot of you had check marks there. And I'll see if Astrid or Carly note anything in the chat.
Carly just notes that this category in particular really plays to our strengths in adult education.
I agree. And I think we've done so much professional development around curriculum and instruction that it really has helped all of these IETs be so strong. Wonderful. So we have another category which is so important, and that is the student experience and progress. So it refers to prioritizing student success through the provision of wraparound services that address basic needs and logistical barriers, and by using competencies, indicators, and feedback to communicate and demonstrate learner progress. So 18 is saying you're engaging all IET partners in providing wraparound services to address students' basic needs and logistical barriers at each phase of programming to strengthen IET program persistence. So are you getting those wraparound services that are not just provided by your program, but maybe the trainer or the employer? I think back, Karen, you might remember Ron in Mankato. He would go out and talk to the employer saying, give me your old equipment so I can use it in the welding class so that people are learning how to use how to weld with equipment. That was a really great way to get some of those wraparound services. It is a challenge, especially in greater Minnesota, where we have transportation as a big barrier for learners. I would say it also is in the metro area, but also getting online, making sure students have Wi-Fi access or computers. 19, put a check mark if you're doing this. Provide wraparound services to address students' basic needs and logistical barriers at each phase of programming in support of IET program persistence. So again, having that career navigator working with the cohort in that IET to make sure students are moving along. I don't see many check marks here. So that makes me think this might be an area of growth for some programs. Number 20 says uses adult literacy, workforce training, and workforce preparation competencies, performance indicators, and student and partner feedback to communicate learner success at each phase of programming. So you've got to be letting students know that they're doing well or not doing well, but also the training partner or the employer. People want to know how students are persisting and how they are learning throughout that entire IET. Thank you for those who are adding to the check marks. You know, in a moment, I'm going to ask you, what are your notices and wonderings? Perhaps some of you who made those check marks could type in the chat what you're doing to help with those wraparound and navigation services to enhance that student experience. So you could put into the chat what you're doing. Those wraparound services are so important, and especially for our adult learners who have to navigate so much in their lives. The more support we can give them in that navigation process, the better quality outcome they will have for their IET experience and that credential. I'll pause to see if there's anything in the chat.
Karen notes that through their P2P grant, they have a career force navigator that provides wraparound support. Scott mentions that wraparound services are expensive, and they've found Lutheran Social Service to come in to help with some of the supports that students need.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Leave also mentions the Career Force Navigator in Mankato, who's been really helpful to assist students with services.
Wonderful. I love to hear this. I'll move us forward just because of time. But here are the last 4 of those quality indicators, friends. Thanks for hanging with me. But this is all around program management, staffing, and organization support. Many of you put on that pumpkin hat at the beginning, and this could be where you are going to be stamping away, right? So this refers to employing database decision-making, effective communication strategies, and sustainable planning to support continuous improvement in all program components for your IET. So stamp number 1, if you are providing multiple opportunities for collecting, analyzing, and using data-driven and outcome decision-making in support of continuous improvement in all program components. All right, so are you collecting the data? Are you analyzing it? Are you using that to make improvements? Maybe not just for the data you have to send to Brad or MDE for him to report, but that you are using that data to improve your IET. Stamp on number 22 if you are employing effective communication strategies with your students, with the faculty, instructors, employers, and partners and organizations to support continuous improvement for the program. I think about that feedback loop after every IET. Find out from the students, maybe go back 6 months later and say, what are the skills that maybe we didn't provide for you that we need to for the next cohort? 23, stamp away if your IET provides staff support for meetings, co-planning, and continuous program improvement, and also provides professional development to enhance knowledge of IET policy, program design, and instructional practice. This PD is part of that, so that you are providing it to your staff. Having those meeting times for co-planning is so important. And as a teacher, I like to say paid meeting time and co-planning time. And finally, the last quality indicator: does your IET address IET sustainability and scaling needs with state systems, local programs, collaborators, employers, and learners? Example is in planning for new IET programs, you're seeking funding and implementing innovative strategies. Okay, so you're always thinking about that improvement, and that you are able to sustain your IET, especially during these questionable funding periods. I see a number of check marks, friends. Thank you for that. I'm going to clear away, and you know what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to share maybe what you noticed about program management, staffing, and organization support within the context of the quality indicators. I'll pause while some of you might be typing in the chat.
Heather, I do see
Yeah.
a question, and someone is wondering about the career force navigators and as a wraparound service, and wondering if they have to pay for the navigator to assist your program. And I'll just try to, I'm not sure if this is universal across the state, but a lot of times with the pathways to prosperity grants that are out of the Department of Employment and Economic Development, ABE programs, along with those partners, might write in special funding to go to a career force navigator. So that's a special pot of money that's part of the grant. Whereas in other areas, they just call them career force counselors. And I think Carly has addressed that. So if you have a learner and they're enrolled in ABE, but they also they want to find employment and they want to get a job, that you could enroll them at a with a career force counselor would enroll them in another funding, WIOA funding stream at a career force center. So there could be two potential pots of money to help cover that, but ideally you're not having to pay or put additional ABE funding out there to cover those costs. And
Right.
yeah.
And I think that was what Karen is doing in Mankato. So friends, if you have questions, you might want to check with Julie on that. I hope that's again all right, Julie. Sending many questions your
Absolutely.
way.
Yep, absolutely. Uh-huh.
Great. If there's nothing else in the chat, I'd like to just let you all know that you can find all of these IET resources that we just shared. The IET quality indicators are in Atlas at the website. You go for resources, adult career pathways. Down here at the bottom, you see integrated education and training. And you can scroll through there. There's so much information. Carly does a fantastic job of keeping it updated and sharing this in many different places. So I really suggest jumping on Atlas website.